You've decided to take the leap, and Japan is your next travel destination. But now what? Where do you go? Where do we fly into? What kind of day trips can we take? How long of a trip should I plan to get everywhere that I want to go visit? I'm going to go through my 5 itineraries that I would recommend for beginner travelers to Japan. And I think you can use any of these to pick from based on your travel time, based on what you really want to see and prioritize on your trip, and based on some other parameters that I think are going to fit in to be able to pick the best itinerary for you. We're going to do this all analog with paper and marker, just so I can better talk you through it. I feel like I can do it a little bit better using paper rather than the screen. So I'm going to go through 5 itineraries. I've done 4 of these myself, okay? And then the 5th one is the one I want to do next. So hopefully I can actually give you some good advice based on my experience. And we're going to go through some options that you can do for your first trip over to Japan, all right? So the first itinerary we're going to go through is going to be called the Tokyo-Centered itinerary. This one is, as it sounds, you're going to fly into Tokyo, you're going to do some day trips, you're going to leave from Tokyo. Okay, and this is the itinerary that I would probably do if you have the shortest amount of time. I would say if you have a week or less, you're pretty locked into this one, or the Osaka-Centered itinerary that we're going to do, or that I'm going to cover in a couple maps here. But I think this one is your very basic, like, I want to go to Japan, I want to go to Tokyo, I want to see a couple things that are not Tokyo. This is going to be the one for you. So that's why we're starting with this one. I've done this one myself, and I want to talk through a couple of the options for day trips that we can do when flying in. Now, one of the main things I want to stress when you're planning your trip, okay? First of all, don't plan to overcrowd your trip with day trips, all right? Because honestly, the cities Tokyo and Osaka, which is probably what you're flying into, are so huge that they're going to take up probably most of your planned time, okay? Unless we're talking you're going for a month, fantastic. But if you're going for a week or 2 weeks even, Tokyo and Osaka are probably going to be your biggest, sources of time spent. Okay, another thing is that when you arrive to Japan, assuming you're coming from the United States or even from Europe, you are going to be so jet lagged. Your first day there, and then even the next day after you get some sleep, you're going to be all out of whack. Okay, so I would highly recommend not scheduling any day trips in your first 2 days, 2 days there. All right, so all of these itineraries are going to reflect that, and we're going to go based on that assumption that we're going to go at least a week, and I'm going to talk about what kind of time requirements are going to be needed for each of these trips. Okay, so for our Tokyo-centered trip, we're obviously going to start in Tokyo. You're going to fly into Tokyo for this one, okay? And then what we're going to do, you're going to have 2 days in Tokyo. Like I said, you're going to have to get acclimated to the time change. You're going to have to kind of take in the scene. It's going to be a complete culture shock if this is your first time in Japan. But yeah, you're going to spend 2 days in Tokyo. And then on the 3rd day, I think you can take your first day trip. Now we have a few day trips here that I have lined up, but I'm going to go with the first one as Mount Fuji, okay? And Mount Fuji is right here. What you're basically going to do is take a train from Tokyo, and it's going to go up to Fuji. You can do this by train or by bus. And then depending on what view of Fuji you want to see, we're either going to take a train or bus to the north part of Fuji, like right here, or we're going to come down to the south part of Fuji here, which is Fuji City, or you can come all the way to Shizuoka even, and you can kind of see Fuji, but I think that if you're trying to see the mountain itself, you're going to want to stick to either the northern parts or to the southern parts if you want to keep into the larger city vibe, but still see the mountain. I think you can come down below. Another thing to note, I know I'm kind of getting off track already, but if you want to go see Fuji, you might want to give it a day or two to figure out what the weather is going to be like, right? So you don't want to book your trip to Fuji and then you're going to show up to Japan and it turns out it's going to be rainy that day. I like to keep Fuji kind of flexible so that I can plan it right when I get there, plan it the day before, buy my tickets the day before when I know the weather is going to be good. So I like to leave my Fuji day trip a little bit flexible, but for example, in our first 2 days in Tokyo, we can monitor the weather. We can then plan our Fuji trip for day 3. This is going to be a day trip. You're going to go probably in the morning. You're going to come back in the evening, get some dinner in Tokyo, and be good to go. And then we can have another day in Tokyo. That's kind of what my 4th day is on this example itinerary. And then the next day we can go ahead and do another day trip. Now, This day trip is going to depend on how long your trip is. So my first option is Nikko, which is a town up here. It's going to be quite a long train ride, but we're going to come all the way up to Nikko, and this is going to be a little bit more nature. Okay, it's going to be a little bit more nature. You're going to see some historical stuff, shrine to Tokugawa Ieyasu, I believe, and it's like kind of some history and nature all in one. The other option is Nagano, which is all the way up here. So that one's going to be a train that comes all the way over here. And Nagano, I wouldn't necessarily do if you only have a week. Like this Tokyo-centered itinerary is for the minimum time. It's for like 7 days in Japan, which is probably what you're going to do if you're doing like some minimum trip length. But Nagano is so far away that I feel like you're going to want to commit 2 days there, right? So I would recommend, if you want to go to Nagano, this is where they have the snow monkeys. There's a lot of hikes. But yeah, if you only have 1 day, like if you're trying to go to a city and come back, Nagano is going to be a little bit tight. It's going to be a little bit far away. It's going to be probably a 2 or 3 hour journey up there and then a 2 or 3 hour journey back. So that's a lot of your day gone. So what I would recommend if you want to go to Nagano is commit 2 days to that, right? I would take the train up there, book accommodations overnight, come back the next day, and you're going to be good to go. But like I said, instead of Nagano, if you have a shorter trip or if you only want to commit 1 day, I would go to Nikko, which has the shrine to Tokugawa Ieyasu, and you're going to still get the nature, you're going to still get a smaller town, and you're going to still kind of get a little bit broader of an experience beyond just the city aspect of Tokyo. And then for day 6, we're going to look at Kawagoe, which is a small town just right here. It's only about 45 minutes from Tokyo. And Kawagoe is going to be you're going to be able to see what Tokyo looked like 500 years ago, right? You're going to see the Edo style period Tokyo buildings, be able to see shops, shrines, kind of like a souvenir-y area, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of like shrines, like legit shrines, and really great places to see for history as well in Kawagoe. So it's just a 45-minute train from the Ikebukuro train station in Tokyo. And yeah, it's really nice for a quicker day trip, or if you even want to do a half-day trip there, you can make that happen. Okay, so Kawagoe would be the last day trip you can do. And then for the rest of the example itinerary, I would just finish off your 2 days in Tokyo, one of which is going to be your departure day. Okay, now I listed what, 1, 2, 3, 4 options for day trips. There are so many more. You can go to Kamakura, you can go to Yokohama, you can go to Shizuoka, you can go to a lot of different places. You can kind of mix and match your itinerary, but the bonus, the advantage of the Tokyo-centered itinerary is that you can kind of build it yourself, and it's still simple, okay? You can pick however many day trips you want to do. You just pick which trips you want to do, and then you just chuck them into your schedule, and you're ready to go. And you don't really have to worry about it. What I would do is just book one accommodation in Tokyo, 7 days, or whatever the length of your trip is. Do it, go to your day trips, come back, you're sleeping in the same place. You don't have to move your stuff around. It's very simple, it's very basic, and that's why the Tokyo-centered itinerary is one of the best for beginners. Okay, the next itinerary is going to be called the Big Three. And the Big Three refers to Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, which are probably the most visited cities in Japan by tourists. So if you're taking a trip, you want to see all the highlights, you're going to do the Big Three trip. Okay, and you can do this one either starting in Osaka or starting in Tokyo, whichever one is more convenient for you. You can do it, just kind of reverse the order, right? But generally, this is the one you're going to do if you have quite a bit more time. I would recommend not doing this one unless you have 10 plus days. 10 is the minimum. Okay, if you're going to do 2 weeks in Japan, this one's great. Okay, you can do this one very easily. So let's go through the example itinerary here. Assuming you fly into Tokyo here, but if we fly into Osaka, we're going to see a very similar thing. Okay, so if you fly into Tokyo, you're going to go to Tokyo, you're going to do your Tokyo visits. The cool thing is you can even, if you're doing Tokyo, you can mix in some of the Tokyo-centered options, right? We can mix those in. But assuming we're flying into Tokyo, we're going to do 4 days in Tokyo however we want to do them. You can spend all 4 in the city. You can throw in one of the day trips there if you are trying to see something else, but great, 4 days in Tokyo. Now on day 5, we're going to take the train to Osaka. We're going to take the bullet train. It takes 2 to 3 hours. I forget how long exactly, but yeah, so this train comes down along the water here basically, all the way to hit Osaka. fantastic. Okay, and don't forget, when you're about here, you can see Fuji, which is right here, just out the train window. Now you can, even though Fuji's on the way to Osaka, there's not really a stop of the train to go to Fuji. If you're taking the bullet train, you kind of have to go all the way. So yeah, if you want to do Fuji, probably do a separate day trip in your Tokyo slot, come back to Tokyo, and then take the bullet train all the way to Osaka. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. Okay, now from Osaka, what we're going to do is just take a short train to Kyoto whenever we want to do that. We can either do that right when we get there, or we can do Osaka first. For example, in this example itinerary, I have 3 days in Osaka. Do that, spend that how you want, and then we're gonna go 2 days in Kyoto. So this is like a 45-minute to an hour train to Kyoto here. We can spend 2 days there. Now what you can do, you can either get some accommodations in Kyoto and stay there for 2 days, or you can just do 2 day trips 2 days in a row from Osaka. That's perfectly valid as well. Okay, whichever one, I don't know which one's gonna save you money. Like, do you want to pay for train twice, or do you want to just pay for an accommodation? Up to you. Okay, and then so once you're there, once you're in Osaka and Kyoto area, you can either spend your last 2 days in Osaka or in Tokyo, depending on where you want to fly out of. Now you can book your flights into Tokyo and out of Osaka, for example. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Or you can take the train all the way back to Tokyo and do the round trip from Tokyo. Now just note that this long train is about 3 hours long. Okay, so you're gonna have to book in 3 hours of train travel in addition to your flights. So whichever one you want to do is going to be not so bad. But the reason I would say that you kind of need 10 plus days to do this is because of how long this journey is. And there's just so much to see in Tokyo, in Osaka, and Kyoto, that if you try to cram that all in a week, with including like a 3 hour train journey right in the middle, it's a lot. And especially if you're doing a round trip flight from, say, Tokyo, and you have to do 3 hours there, 3 hours back in a week, it's going to be kind of tough. All right, so I would recommend 10 plus days on this one. For example, this itinerary here is 11 days. So yeah, it's a good example itinerary for that. Okay, so yeah, that's probably the second most common itinerary you would see. Let's move on to itinerary number 3. The third itinerary I want to cover is the Osaka-Centered itinerary. Just like the Tokyo-Centered itinerary, it's going to look like you fly into Osaka, you're going to do whatever day trips you want to do, and you're going to leave from Osaka, and it's going to be very easy. This is another one that's a low minimum time requirement. Okay, so if you're only going for a week or even less, you can fly to Osaka, you can do whatever day trips you want to do, and then you can get out. And the nice thing about the Osaka-Centered itinerary is that while Tokyo has Fuji as a very popular day trip, Osaka has Kyoto as a very popular day trip. And it's a balance of which one do you want to do more. But Osaka is going to be right here. It's going to be pretty easy to get around to a lot of different options. So for my example itinerary here, we have 2 days in Osaka. When we get there, the usual 2 days, get acclimated, get your culture shock out of the way. And then we're going to start doing our day trips. We're going to do one day trip to Nara, which is a town right here, straight east. And this is a town very popular for its deer that wander the streets. Okay, so if you like wildlife, you're going to want to go check out Nara. It's a great place. There's a lot of history involved. I think it used to be the former capital of Japan at some point in Japan's history. So there's a lot of history to be seen right here in Nara. Okay, the next day trip I would recommend is going to be Himeji. And that one's going to be a train that comes all the way around over here. And here's Himeji. Himeji is the site of one of the oldest or biggest castles in Japan. I haven't actually seen it myself. I haven't done the Himeji trip, but this is definitely an option that you can do if you want to do a day trip from Osaka. And then I would come back to do another day in Osaka, just kind of like catch your breath a little bit. Doing a day trip every single day is going to just get overwhelming a little bit, I think. Or at least for me, I wouldn't prefer to do that. So, no more than 2 day trips in a row. I would do one more day in Osaka. And now we can do our Kyoto part. You can also swap the Kyoto and the Nara Himeji part as well. But the Kyoto part's just going to be a train up to Kyoto right here. And we're going to do 2 days there. Just like I talked about in our Big 3 itinerary. You can go up to Kyoto 2 days in a row. You can go to Kyoto and get accommodations and move all your stuff. It's up to you how you want to do it. But personally, if I'm doing a centered itinerary, I like to just have one accommodation for the entire time and then do day trips from there, just so I don't have to move my stuff all the time. Okay, I don't want to check in, check out, deal with all that. I'll just buy accommodations. And even then, if I want to do an accommodation in Kyoto, if I want to stay overnight there, I'll just double book accommodations. I'll spend that money in exchange for not having to move all of my luggage around. Okay, I will just book an Osaka accommodation for 8 nights, and then if I want to go to Kyoto for 1 night, I'll just keep that Osaka reservation, take my day backpack to Kyoto, stay overnight there, come back. And yeah, you spend a little bit more that way, but I think for convenience, it's kind of nice. Okay, and then our final day, we're going to come back to Osaka, and that's going to be our departure day. So this is an 8-day itinerary here. If you have more days, and this goes for any of these itineraries, if you have more days than I have in my example itinerary, just extend wherever you want or add more day trips. We also have Kobe as a popular day trip, popular for its Kobe beef, Wagyu beef. If you are really into eating beef, Kobe is a place for you, okay? And then there's all these towns along the coast down here. Wakayama, I haven't been to. You can go to Awaji Island. I haven't been to those either. I really haven't been to any of these places down here, but I'm sure they're fantastic. I haven't been anywhere that I didn't like in Japan. So you can go to any of these spots if you want to extend your Osaka-centered trip. Go explore the, off the beaten track type of places as well. And since we're in Osaka, we're going to stay here for our 4th itinerary. This one, speaking of off the beaten track, is going to be called the Osaka South Loop. And this one, you can see this map is kind of zoomed out. Osaka's right here. Okay, this one is going to be a coverage of the cities down to the south and the west from Osaka. Okay, this one is not going to hit a lot of your popular destinations. You're going to see some stuff that probably people don't often see on their first time to Japan, but this is definitely an option that you can do to kind of see a little bit of different stuff. So for this example itinerary, we're going to do our 2 days in Osaka to start. We're going to fly into Osaka, of course. We're going to do our 1-day Kyoto day trip this time. I think if you're going to Osaka, you should see Kyoto. Like, if Osaka's on your itinerary, Kyoto should be too, because it's so close. It's a 45-minute train. So we're just going to do the 1 day in Kyoto, come back. And then we're going to do the South Loop. We're going to go down to the south and west, and we're kind of just going to go in a line. We're going to start with something like Kobe or Himeji. So we'll just do that first. And then on the next day, we're going to go to Himeji. And then we're basically just going to hit each of these cities down here along the coast. The next one we're going to do is going to be Hiroshima, which is all the way down here. Now, you probably know Hiroshima if you know some of your history. But I think it's going to be a fantastic city to do. Fantastic city to see for the history. It's modernized. Obviously, it was rebuilt in the last century. So there's a lot of cool history and modernization to check out in Hiroshima. So we're basically going to take this line along the coast. Now, if you don't like some of these locations on the way that I picked, like Kobe and Himeji, you can stop wherever you want. Go to Okayama, okay, if you want to. It's a little bit larger of a city. You can stop anywhere here and come across to the island if you want to. Like, it's kind of like build your own trip when it comes to the Osaka South Loop, okay? So we're going to come down, do 1 city per day, and then end up in Hiroshima and spend, I would say, 2 days in Hiroshima, because I think it's one of the bigger cities to see. And then whenever you're done, depending on the length of your trip, we're just going to make our way back, okay? We're just going to come back along the same path and end up in Osaka. All right, so that's going to be what I'm going to call the Osaka South Loop, even though it's kind of like the Osaka South line. You just do it twice, but yeah, do mix and match whichever cities you want to do. But this was kind of an interesting one because we're seeing a lot of stuff that you probably normally wouldn't see. We're getting farther away from Osaka and Tokyo, and a lot of people don't do that on their first trips, but it's definitely going to offer a little bit of what's familiar with Osaka and Kyoto, but it's also going to offer some stuff that are a little bit off the beaten path. And now for our final itinerary of the 5 for starter itineraries on your first trip to Japan, we're going to do this one called the Tokyo North Loop. Now, you can figure it out, right? Osaka South Loop, we did everything south and west of Osaka that you probably normally wouldn't see. Now for Tokyo North Loop, we're going to do everything north and east of Tokyo that you probably normally wouldn't see on your first trip to Japan. This one's going to start really easy. Come into Tokyo, spend your 3 days however you want. okay? And then whenever you're ready to go, depending on the length of your trip, we're going to take the bullet train, the Shinkansen, up to Sendai, Japan. And that's going to come up here. It's going to go through Fukushima, and it's going to end up in Sendai. This was the itinerary I did on my most recent trip to Japan. I went from Tokyo to Sendai and back. Sendai I thought was fantastic. I have a video out on the channel, top 5 things to do in Sendai. If you're kind of curious about this itinerary, you can go check that out to see what Sendai is all about. But then, to make it more than just a 2-city trip, on your way back, you can go to Fukushima as well. So, on your way back from Sendai to Tokyo, we can come down through Fukushima, stop there, and then spend a day. And then we can come down to Tokyo to finish out the loop. So, it's basically the northern line from Tokyo. We're going to go ahead and see 3 different cities, and that's kind of great. Now, if you have more time on this loop or in this itinerary, you can either spend a 3rd day in Sendai, you can hit another city within here, but there's not a whole lot, to be totally honest. Between Fukushima and Tokyo, there's not a whole lot to do, or not a whole lot of places to stop off the train that I know of. So, if you have more time, I would just add more time to your Tokyo, either at the beginning or at the end. And then from there, just add in some of the Tokyo-centered options, okay? That's the really nice thing about these itineraries, is that the more time you have, all of these itineraries kind of connect to each other. So you can just mix and match whatever pieces of each itinerary that you like. For this Tokyo North Loop, I would recommend a minimum trip length of 8 days. That's because this train up to Sendai is 2 hours. It's not too bad. Like, you could do this in fewer than 8 days. But Sendai's kind of big. There's a lot of stuff to do over there. I would recommend spending 2 to 3 days there. So if you want to see most of Tokyo and all the highlights of Tokyo, and also see the highlights of Sendai, I would recommend at least 8 days. Plus, like, just to not wear yourself out. It's nice to have that little bit of extra time. So that's going to wrap up my 5 itineraries for your first or second or third trips to Japan. If you've been there a few times and you want to do a different itinerary, you can check these out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and please ask questions. I've done every one of these itineraries except for the Osaka South Loop, which is the one I want to do next. So yeah, if you have any particular questions, and if you want to see more videos about like what to do while you're in Sendai, what to do when you're in Osaka, what to do when you're in Tokyo. I only said, for example, like spend 2 days in Osaka, but I didn't tell you what to do in Osaka. So if you want to see videos like that, please let me know. I'll be happy to make those if I get a little bit of support or like, you know, requests for those. All right, with that being said, thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. We'll see you soon.